Hello everybody, welcome to today's webinar. This is cyberbullying. This is the substantial disruption test. Just a few technical aspects of our webinar today. We will be recording, and so we'll announce the replay to this. In case you miss parts of it, you can go back, or if you want to recommend it to colleagues. Also, we'll be taking questions throughout in the questions area, so if you would just please type in your questions, we'll get to them as soon as possible. At this point, I'd like to go ahead and hand this over to our president of the Florida School Counselor Association, Dr. Rebecca Schumacher. Becky.
Thank you, Russ, and welcome everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce our speakers today for the webinar and thank them for their participation in delivering this important professional development to folks across the state. Dr. Carolyn Stone, who's professor of school counseling at the University of North Florida. She's also past president of ASCA. She's the current chair of the ASCA Ethics Committee. She's authored the ASCA Ethical Standards, and she's also the author of the widely used book, School Counseling Principles, Ethics and Law, and she's presented and authored extensively on legal and ethical issues in school counseling. So welcome, Carolyn. And Dr. Russ Sabella, who's professor in school counseling at Florida Gulf Coast University. Russ is also past president of ASCA. He currently serves as the Florida School Counselor Association past president and chairs our technology committee. He serves on the editorial board for ASCA's journal, and he too has presented and authored extensively on cyberbullying and technology. So welcome to our two presenters, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And I'll turn it over to Russ and Carolyn.
Thank you, Becky. Russ, you want me to forge ahead?
Please do, Carolyn. I'll join in when I'm ready.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules. We know that it's tough for school counselors to get away, and it's always impressive when people give up a whole hour of their time to talk about these tough cases. Bullying and technology. We know that cyberbullying has created a brand new set of problems for school district personnel. Not easy answers, because cyberbullying often originates off school campus. School officials knew what to do with bullying that happened on school campus, on the way home, at the bus stops. But when you've got bullying that's happening from the inner sanctuary of someone's home, it has put a brand new spin on bullying and has burdened, if you will, the legal system to try to figure out when do we rule that somebody's First Amendment rights have been violated, and when do we accept the fact that this is a substantial disruption to the educational process. Victim, bully, and bystander. We're seeing more and more that this perfect storm of hormones, the lack of the development of the prefrontal cortex, peer pressure, media influence, and what is especially troublesome is the perceived anonymity that I think gives students that courage and that barrier that allows them to be even more cruel and to say things that they normally might not say to someone's face or person to person to their peers. But that perceived anonymity is creating, again, that perfect storm. The fact that so many students have access to cell phones and social media, groupthink, that sociology, do what your friends do, think like them in order to be part of the group, that group cohesiveness. And our idea of privacy versus a teenager whose prefrontal cortex has not developed their idea of privacy. Notions of privacy have changed. According to a Washington Post article from May 2011, with few restraints, teens are creating digital records that help shape their reputations offline. Game applications, iPhones, Facebook, and other applications collect location information regularly from teens. in order for them to be part of this network with their peers, they have to give in and give up personal information in order to participate. So it is a perfect storm, and the courts are still struggling with this. And that's the part that I want to talk about today, is where do we as school counselors fit into this when we're talking about the court's struggle to define substantial disruption? Russ gives great techniques and tips about intervention and also the level of incidence. And I'm going to talk more about where are we legally with cyberbullying today. First, I want to talk about the Hope Witzel case, because I think it leads us into a court case that I feel like always needs to be stressed. And with Hope, the reason why I want to talk about her particular case is that it also involved a school counselor. Hope Witzel was a middle school student. She was 13 years old, and she was a Floridian, Sundance, Florida. At the end of her 7th grade year, she sent a topless photo of herself to a boy she liked. The photo was intercepted by another girl, a third party, who was using the boy's cell phone, and she sent the photo viral. She sent the photo out, and the photo went viral. Incessant, cruel bullying followed. MySpace pages were created in inviting people to humiliate Hope. Their whole purpose was to further humiliate her. School officials found out about this at the end of the school year, and they told Hope and her parents that Hope would be suspended for the first week of the next school year. Hope's parents acted. They grounded her, suspended her cell phone usage and her computer privileges. Again, through badgering and through harassment that summer at a Future Farmers of America conference, Hope sent a group of boys who were badgering her to share a picture of her breast. She sent them a picture. When she returned to school in the fall, she met with the school counselor, who noticed cuts on her legs and on other parts of her body, and had Hope sign a no-harm contract. And it appears from the allegations that the school did not inform Hope's parents of this no-harm contract. The next day, Hope hung herself. After Hope died, her mother learned her daughter had been summoned to meet with the school counselor. And Hope's mother says she was never told about the contract, never told about the self-harm, and she found the crumpled up in the garbage in her daughter's bedroom after she died, the contract. They believe that school officials, however, dispute the fact that a phone call, they didn't at least try to make a phone call. Yes, they did not connect, but they said they had tried to call. In question was, how many times they tried and whether or not any messages were left. None of that has been substantiated. It's basically one side saying one thing, no phone calls, no messages, and the other side saying, but we did try to call. The mother said, Donna Witzel, the mother said, the school didn't call. They have a digital telephone. Cell phones indicated there was no incoming call, and if there had been an incoming call, the number that had been called would have been recorded. They have a house phone, a cell phone, and the husband has a cell phone. Emergency contact numbers at the school were sister-in-law and husband. All those numbers were available. There's no indication that the school called any of those numbers. So you know where I'm going with this, that above all, err on the side of caution. With the McHale case, also, we've learned about contracts, suicide contracts, and how the American Psychiatric Association, they no longer use suicide contracts because they know they don't work. And they were the ones who invented them, and they have discarded them as dangerous, false sense of security, leaves everyone with a sense of security. In the McHale case, this child told the paraprofessional that he wanted to blow his brains out. She reported it to the counselor. The counselor called the student in, had him sign a no-harm contract, called the mother, told the mother that the school counselor told the mother that she thought everything was okay. Molay was the school counselor. Molay said to the mom, I don't think you need to pick him up. Joshua has signed a contract for safety, and I think that he's fine to stay at school. 3 weeks later, Joshua committed suicide. The gist of this court case was not that the parents weren't notified of the potential harm. The gist of it was when the counselor said, you don't have to pick your child up because I think he's fine, that the counselor took over custody and control of the student's safety. We know that cyberbullying is not necessarily a straight line to suicide. We know that cyberbullying does not necessarily lead to suicide, but it can be that perfect storm that in that minor's developmental level with the prefrontal cortex not quite developed, that these kinds of social and peer problems, especially to the degree that Hope was having them, because she was being tortured by peers on a daily basis, that this can all lead to cyberbullying. Excuse me, not cyberbullying. This can lead to developmentally this student thinking they have no way out. So McHale has taught us, and also the Hope Witzel case has taught us, that err on the side of caution. No-harm contracts can be dangerous, and they assault a false sense of security. We want to avoid those when we can.
Carolyn, this is Russ. I want to go ahead. I just want to go ahead and emphasize what it is you're saying right now. You know, a lot of times the media will really lead us to believe that suicide leads to and causes, cyberbullying causes suicide. And what you said is so true and so important, which is that we know it's correlated. We know that cyberbullying causes distress and pain and post-trauma, which can aggravate a current situation. What we know is that there's a lot of kids, tens of thousands of kids, who are experiencing cyberbullying, and they do cope. It's not fun, and it can be very aggravating, but they have support systems, they have good coping skills. And the ones that we're talking about usually with suicide are some of the extreme examples, and they're all very important, but they are rare. And these are typically kids who are already dealing with issues in their lives. They're vulnerable, sometimes because of some disability, perhaps an educational disability, a physical disability. Somehow they're perceived by their classmates as outside of the norm, whatever that is. We also know that sexuality, LGBTQ students seem to have about 10 times higher risk. And so these are kids who are already struggling with life, and cyberbullying really starts to push them toward the edge.
Absolutely. Thanks, Russ. And the substantial disruption case is the subject of the next couple of court cases I'd like to talk about. This one, both of these first two came out of Pennsylvania. The first one, a high school counselor, middle school principal in northwestern Pennsylvania, that's the second one. Excuse me, a high school counselor in northwestern Pennsylvania was shocked to see his photo online with a description of him being called a hairy sex addict and a pervert, and that this principal routinely liked hitting on students in a closed-door office. Another high school principal north of Pittsburgh saw a MySpace profile of himself that called him a big fag and a whore and a drug user. The third case up there, West Virginia girl, this child was a victim of a peer who created an online site to maliciously mock her as a slut with herpes. Principal found out about this. All three of these students involved in these three postings were suspended from school, and all three of these had suits filed against the principal and the school district by the students' parents. They argued that the students' First Amendment rights for protection were violated, that they were punished for posting from their own home computer. In the two Pennsylvania cases, the students won, parents won, that their First Amendment rights were violated. In the West Virginia case, the school district prevailed in that the West Virginia girl did not prevail, in that the school district was exonerated for disciplining the girl who had created the MySpace page. These three cases are important because these three cases went to the Supreme Court in January of 2012. The school officials in 8 national associations and members of 8 national associations, board of directors of these associations, were asking the Supreme Court for help. Help us, please, regulate speech that in the reasonable judgment of a school official undermines the core educational mission or interferes with maintaining a safe and effective learning environment. They wanted a standard created by which they could live by and have some guidance as to what exactly is substantial disruption. National School Board Association, American Association of Secondary School Administrators, National Association of Secondary School Principals, National Association of Elementary School Principals, the American School Counselor Association. A number of important national associations signed on to this amicus brief asking the courts. They weren't plaintiffs, they weren't defendants, but they had a vested interest in the outcome of this case and asking the courts, please help us. Help us regulate speech that is creating disruption. We as officials are trying to figure out when is it a violation of First Amendment rights and when can we say that this speech has the potential or has created a substantial disruption. The Supreme Court refused to hear the cases. So the court left us in school districts again without a common thread as established by the Supreme Court of the United States as to what is the standard for First Amendment violation and what is the standard for substantial disruption. David Hudson out of Vanderbilt University is a First Amendment scholar. He says the phenomena of cyberbullying is ratcheting up the importance of this issue and that the courts missed an opportunity to really clarify what school districts can do. Francis Nigrin of the General Counsel of the National School Board Association said also we missed the opportunity to really clarify for school districts what the responsibility and authority is with regards to substantial disruption. So here we are, a case where the law is dragging behind the times, according to the National School Board Association. It's a gray area, and it's continuing to grow from here. Right now, Florida has a new law that was passed that gives us some guidance as far as our role in cyberbullying, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But right now I want to turn this over to Russ, who's going to talk more about the school counselor's role. Russ?
Okay, very good. Now let's see, this is one of the first times we've done this, so I want to go ahead and make myself the presenter so that I can share my screen with you. Here we go. 1 second, show my screen. All right. Very good. And I'm just going to move a couple of things over real quick as we switch gears here. There it is. Perfect. Okay. And so what I want to do is start with this. And let me just make sure I have the right, so I have two screens. Yep, I'm sharing the right one. So what I've been doing here, and I've got, gosh, Carolyn, I'm thinking I'm going to go maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and will that give you enough to finish? And so what I want to talk about is comprehensive anti-bullying, cyberbullying. And by the way, we don't really make a big distinction between those two. There are some differences in how it is, of course, that things are delivered. When it comes to the definition, repetition, the repetition part of bullying is a little unclear, since one posting of something online repeated by others can still fit the definition of persistent and repetitive, even though the person, the perpetrator, only posted it one time. The other big difference, obviously, is impact. We can now have people who can bully 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in front of massive audiences. But I'm going to kind of minimize the distinctions between the two, because my fear is that cyberbullying has begun to overshadow traditional bullying. And what we know is that actually traditional bullying is not only still a problem, but we believe that it still is a more frequent and pervasive problem than even cyberbullying. Now, the truth is that about 75% of those kids overlap. They're bullying pretty much all day long. They're online, then they kind of spill over to offline, then they're back online. And in fact, that's kind of how we want people to think of just bullying, which is just whether it's online or offline, no matter how it's delivered, that bullying is bullying. I have a colleague and a friend who kind of makes that point very poignantly, but he says, you know, if somebody were to stab you with a pencil, we don't call that pencil bullying, and so why should we make these distinctions between types? But in any case, as we move on, one of the things I did also want to share with you is that, let me just see here, I've got some resources, and a lot of you know I maintain schoolcounselor.com, but one of my other websites is called guardingkids.com, and this is a website where I have lots and lots of resources. So if you click on the resource button, you'll see lots of downloads. And in fact, the one that you're seeing up there first is one of the largest. It's almost 3 gigabytes big. It has all of my student assemblies with both elementary and middle high school. It's got my workshop with parents. It's got my workshop that focuses on online digital reputation and the differences between privacy and being public. It's also got a ton of videos. There's book chapters that I've done that are in there. And so I'm going to encourage you to go to guardingkids.com, click on resources, and then go ahead and download the big file there. Okay. Let's just see here. There's an article there that I just included that just got published called Cyberbullying Myths and Realities. A couple of colleagues, Justin Patchen and Samir Hinduja, we looked for over about a year at the professional literature regarding the best known data that we have on cyberbullying, and we compared it to the mass media, which is everything, print, radio, TV, social networking, and we detected a whole bunch of myths. Like, for instance, one that we just covered, which is that bullying or cyberbullying causes suicide. Another one is that cyberbullying is an epidemic, and we know that although this is a serious problem, it really doesn't meet the criteria for being an epidemic. About 75% of kids, a little bit more than that, are actually doing okay. They're responsible users. They take precautions, and it's really a relatively smaller number of kids who are doing lots and lots of damage. So talking about intervention, there's a snapshot of schoolcounselor.com. If you click on handouts, you'll see lots and lots of handouts in this area. And really the goal that school counselors and other people who do this kind of work is really to increase awareness and reduce risk. And one of the things that I've been doing in more recent times is using the response to intervention model, which is a multi-tiered model, and applying it to a comprehensive bullying program. So Tier 1, which is about, this is the intervention that all kids get, and hopefully at least 80% of them will meet standards standards that are for all kids. Tier 2 are for the ones that need extra attention. This is the targeted area. Some kids who are still at risk for bullying, whether perpetrator or target. Then, of course, Tier 3 is when it starts to reach even the level of criminality. And what you'll notice here, just as an overview, is Tier 1, when it comes to best practice, and this is through the research, through talking with kids, through talking with educators over the years, includes some very critical areas. Number 1 is policies, and it just turns out that Florida has one of the most comprehensive policies. Thanks to Deb Johnston and her work with the Jeffrey Johnson Stand Up for All Student Act. And so you can get that from the Florida DOE. Then there's education and training, both for parents as well as students and staff. Students, obviously, the ones who've got their fingers on the trigger, and parents are the ones outfitting their kids with that technology, and really not knowing what kinds of impacts that they can have. Also with parents, we need to help them update their family policies and procedures and rules, conditions and consequences, for 21st century living. Then I'm also going to recommend peer helper programs. How is it that kids can help other kids to do all kinds of things? One, for instance, is just to learn. Can we use some of the curriculum, which I'm about to point you to train kids to do 15, 20, maybe 30-minute presentations, show a video, and cover 5 bullet points. Really keep cyberbullying important points on the radar all year long as part of an overall character education program. Peers could also be special friends. So for kids who are specifically undergoing for instance, exclusion attack, these are kids who can come along and say, although others are afraid to sit with you during lunch or in class or talk to you, we will, because what we know is that what you are undergoing and what you're experiencing is wrong, and we're going to be here for you. These are kids who can also help support and report, support to report. So we'll look at peer helper programs, and then, of course, again, I just mentioned overall character education. And then the other part is that schools really do need a good reporting system, not just to get ahead of this once it starts to happen. And kids, we know, are on the front lines. They're recognizing situations way before we do. But also, Carolyn, this is part of liability. We need schools to have systems that can demonstrate that they've responded appropriately
Exactly.
and in a timely way. Some more targeted interventions include counseling, both individual and small groups, continued peer helper programs, working with parents more closely, working with leadership and perhaps the dean for disciplinary procedures. And then right now, the big talk in cyberbullying is restorative justice. Rather than suspending a kid and allowing them to be home, to do more cyberbullying with greater time and technology and less supervision, how can we implement a system where kids who have done damage can start to make victims whole and correct or right a situation that went wrong? And of course, some of the most highly targeted is not only disciplinary procedures, school referral, more counseling, perhaps referral to mental health counseling as well, working with authorities, diversion programs, and continued restorative justice. So as I was talking, actually, Carolyn, you talked before about some of the lack of clarity in disruption. There's also a lack of clarity in what cyberbullying is. What you're seeing here is kind of a meta-analysis. We believe that given the most standard definitions, that it's around 20 to 25%. But what you can see is that the studies are all over the place. And this is based not only on the fact that cyberbullying is a moving target, that it is somewhat anonymous and hard to decipher, but also the definitions of cyberbullying has varied from place to place. This is some of the more common median kinds of stuff. Again, it's 20%. By gender, a little bit different, just a slight majority of girls involved in cyberbullying. What is more alarming, though, is over here on the left side, what you'll notice is the response to "I have been cyberbullied," whereas a little bit of a bigger disparity among girls. And I mean, we could sit and talk for the next few minutes about why that is, but what we believe is just that the way that girls operate as part of a networking system. And so although one part of the system may have resolution to cyberbullying, other parts of the system may continue and make it hard to stop. All right, so I'm going to kind of skip over here, and we've talked about the different areas of intervention, and so the next thing I want to go to is assessment. I'll just really at this point going to move pretty quickly and point to different resources. This is a very small sliver of the kinds of the PowerPoint you can download from my Guarding Kids website. There are some great resources out there for assessment. I like the cyberbullying report card. And by the way, when you download this, you can play the show, and when you click on the screen, typically it'll take you to the website from where it came. Or, of course, you can Google lots of this stuff. This one comes from the National Center for Ed Statistics, and I like this because you can start comparing your data against some of the national statistics. Here's one of my favorite. You can download this as a PDF or you can order it. This is a compendium of assessment tools, some of which are free, others of which you have to order. And there's a whole bunch of them here. And so I know from this menu of assessments you will not have to reinvent the wheel, and you can pick some. I did mention policies, and as I'm moving along here, I'm just realizing that I probably have not been monitoring questions. I'm looking at it now. We are good. So policies. So included in my Guarding Kids download, or you can go to the Florida DOE. You can download the Florida policies, which, as you can see here, this is just an outline of some of the areas that are just wonderful. Lots of different comprehensive areas that our Florida DOE model policies look at. I also like this one from the GLSEN folks. This is a model district anti-bullying and harassment policy as well. And then, of course, there's standards and curriculum. I like the National School Climate Standards, which really cyberbullying is a part of. And we know the research is very clear that as you enhance school climate, bullying and cyberbullying both tend to go down. Our Department of Education at the federal level has some great resources. Here's some other curriculum that I point to. At the elementary level, I think Bucket Fillers has a lot of promise. Here's Hazelden's Olveus, which has a lot of good research behind it. And I like the government's stopbullying.gov. I've been watching this one, and there's a lot of great resources on that one you can use and download. Of course, the Ask a Scene has lots and lots of curriculum and files. You can search through that. Here's some other ones. Franklin Covey has some good stuff. Students Against Violence Everywhere. Some more from Hazelden. And then I'm going to also let you know that I've been kind of keeping a spreadsheet. And so as I come across free or almost free curriculum, a lot of this is free. You can download the most current table at that website address, bit.ly/cyberbullying-curr-table. And in fact, I just updated that very recently. And from that table, you'll see different things like Embrace Civility. Nancy Willard, just brand new, has put this out. She's been working really hard on this. NetSmarts has some amazing resources. And what I like about NetSmarts is you can start downloading them by developmental age. So you can go right to elementary, middle, or secondary. There's videos, there's curriculum, lesson plans, handouts. I also like Hazelden's prevention curriculum, both at the elementary and the upper grades. I understand that the second edition of this one's coming out very soon. More and more books are out, like this one really emphasizes the upstanding rather than bystanding. And here's one of my all-time favorites, the Seattle Public School page, which has middle school curriculum, and it's very long, and they give this away for free. And this is very easily adaptable, both to elementary and high school. And what I like about this curriculum is it really uses lots of analogies. There are things that you would not do. There are ways that you would not behave given an audience or given that you would be identified offline. And so why would you do very similar things online? Another one is by MTV. It's a project called A Thin Line. Lots of great resources, videos, and other things there. The It Gets Better project has some great inspiration. And then we turn to peer helper programs. Of course, the American School Counselor Association supports peer helper programs. There's some position statements. And by the way, Carolyn, you know because you worked on it, but our latest rendition of our ethical standards makes it an ethical obligation to deal with bullying, and especially cyberbullying, in our schools. And so this is something that not only morally but ethically we can't avoid it. Here's some examples of peer programs in the news that are working to prevent bullying, so as I kind of keep track of some of the media on this. So these are just different examples here. This one's at the university level, which is becoming more and more popular as we see more and more online classes where students are starting to show some cyberbullying behaviors even within online classes. I like this one. This one comes out of California. This one started out as being a gang intervention, but now focuses mostly on cyberbullying. Here's another one. We Stop Hate. And again, peer helping is important because you and I can kind of get in front of students all day long and intervene and do learning activities and talk to them, but it's when a kid that they perceive to be a peer who does the same exact thing will really start to carry some weight. Some tips, let me kind of skip through this. Well, some tips for peer helper success. Start small and build. Collaborate with others. Engage the process. And here's another thought. A lot of times people consider peer mediation for bullying. Getting the bully and the target together in front of some peer mediators in order to resolve. And I actually thought this was a good idea to begin with, but as I've talked to more kids and I've also talked to more schools, and as I looked at a little bit of research that's available on this, what I'm really convinced about now is that it's not a good idea. What I found is that the power differential gets in the way, that the bully uses the fact that they were dragged into peer helping or even voluntarily to confirm that person's power and the target's weakness. In fact, they use peer mediation to continue the bullying against the target by making fun of them. Also, it really, what we also know, what the kids say, is that in a peer mediation situation, the bully knows what to say, but yet once it's over, they continue doing what they're doing. All right. So here's a youth leaders toolkit from the U.S. DOE at stopbullying.gov. Pretty good. And so here's some ideas. What can peer helpers do? Well, I think they can do educational campaigns. They can develop 2 to 3 minute PSAs or public service announcement videos. Even though those are readily available at YouTube, you know, it's nice when students get to see their fellow classmates in a public service announcement. They can do brochures. They can do bulletin boards. They can also deliver classroom lessons. They can take some of the curriculum from Seattle or NetSmarts or one of the other resources. For the elementary age, I like some of the McGruff resources against bullying. And they can just take 15 minutes and deliver those. I'm actually recommending to schools that they just go ahead and develop their own curriculum. Show one of the thousands of wonderful anti-cyberbullying videos online over a school network and pull out a couple of pages of very important points. Then there's the Special Friends network that I mentioned before, kids supporting both emotionally as well as for reporting. And then perhaps one of the, I think, granddaddies is kids teaching adults or other kids, conferences or town meetings, kids helping. And I can't tell you just how helpful kids have been to me as I sit with them, since I do focus groups, my own children. have taught me and made me aware of things that I don't think would have shown up in any of the literature that we have access to. If you go to YouTube, as I mentioned, lots and lots of great videos. In fact, if you go to my YouTube channel, just Google me. I've got a nice little playlist going. And on my schoolcounselor.com website, I've got a must-see videos section that has a lot of bullying. So basically, and I'll just take a few more minutes here. Here are some of the messages, kind of those important messages or points that we're telling kids when it comes to bullying. First, don't reply to abusive messages. It really only fuels the fire. It actually fulfills the goal of the bully. And so we say don't reply at all. Or if you must, there's a 3-point message. A, what you are doing is bullying. B, it is wrong. And C, you must stop or I will report. That's the 3-point messages that we want them to put out there if they must reply. The other part is to keep a record, no matter how hurtful or painful it is to look at, no matter how embarrassing it might be. Don't delete, but just kind of move stuff over to a folder, take screenshots, save transcripts, instant messages, text messages, because all of that is evidence, and we need that evidence to find who's doing it and to help make it stop. Also, think before you send, even though it might be funny at the time. What would it look like and what will it be like for someone to read what you're about to post in front of an audience of, say, thousands? And in fact, the analogy that I like to use is what would happen if we were to put on a billboard out on I-75 for thousands of cars, people to see every day. What if we were to put up there what you were about to post, and your grandmother and NBC and ABC and CBS could see it, as well as your classmates and teachers? What would be the impact and effect? If you receive something rude about someone else, even though you might think it's funny, instead of passing it along, which really contributes to something going quote-unquote viral, and I think there's a good reason why we call it viral, because it's kind of like a virus. It spreads just like the flu. Don't do it. In fact, if you must do something, either ignore it or reach out to the target and let them know what's going on and help them to make it stop. You have a right not to be bullied. Please, we tell kids, find a trusting, helpful adult. You may not be able to find a person right away. You may have to keep trying, because adults want to do the right thing, but sometimes they don't. They want to defend. They want to call the bully's parents. They want to, and oftentimes kids don't report because they perceive that adults are going to make things worse, and actually there's some truth to that. Some adults do make it worse even though they mean well. So what we're trying to do is also teach parents and others to kind of be more supportive, help the student take the lead, and respond really rather than react. And of course, a lot of times when a student's account, especially a social networking account like Facebook, is compromised because they felt that their BFF was trustworthy and they could share their passwords with them, that can run into a problem when their best friend turns into their enemy and they change the password, and now they can use their accounts against them and impersonate them. So we also try to teach kids that the private is not the same as privacy, that you can set up all your accounts on private, but all it takes is one person to take what's in your network outside of your network and allow that to go viral. So the rule basically is online, there is 0% privacy. You are never alone. And you cannot just simply share something with a select number of people. It's really become a binary rule. Either you've got to decide that nobody sees it or everybody sees it. Of course, here's the new motto: hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, and now post no evil. And one of my favorites, think, and you can kind of blow this up into a poster, but here are some questions that kids can ask themselves before posting, just to consider. Of course, here's another one. If, again, you wouldn't say it in front of an audience, don't say it online. And then one of the other intervention messages that we've been giving quite a bit is this one right here, which is stand up instead of standing by. And so if you know of someone who has been the target of bullying, gather your friends, work with adults, and help them. Help them to stop the bullying rather than just ignoring it, because ignoring is permission and continues to support the power imbalance. All right, so gosh, I can keep going here, Carolyn, but I thought I'd check with you to see. We've got about 10 or so minutes. Wanted to see how we're doing. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, Russ, I think the only thing that I wanted to add is the Florida statute that's been around for quite a while, Chapter 2013, amending 1006.147 Florida statute.
Right.
In July, the legislators went in and put some new language in our statute, and I have it here. If let me get to that. Yes, here we are. If you want to make my screen visible, is it there? Russ, are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I muted myself. Yep, you're
okay.
there. We can see you now.
All right, sounds good. This is the Jeffrey Johnson Stand Up for Students Act. Jeffrey Johnson, one of those tough stories that we hear. He was Cape Coral, Florida, middle schooler, 7th grader. He was an honor student, had a good circle of friends, but things kind of spiraled out of control when students started rumors that he was gay. One student in particular, he told his mom, "I don't know why this kid is trashing me, shunning me." It continued and was exacerbated until finally Jeff at 13 took his life. He hung himself. The Jeffrey Johnson law came out of that. The new language in the Jeffrey Johnson laws, because he had been the tormenting that he took was in cyberspace. They added some language to Florida statute, and if you'll look down at number D, through the use of data or computer software, this is the new language that has been added. Basically, what you see to A, B, and C are bullying language that's been around for a while, but D, they added that bullying and harassment is prohibited even if it occurs off school grounds without school board property being involved, and through the use of data or computer software that's non-school related location, activity, function, or program. So in other words, they made it illegal, and if something's not illegal, it's harder to suspend a student for doing something that's not clearly delineated as illegal. So this helps school officials in Florida, and it's become a model, I think, for many states to adopt this same kind of language. The new law also gives what they consider in Florida to be the meaning of cyberbullying right there. You see it under B, cyberbullying. According to the statute, is any bullying through the use of technology or electronic communication, and then it goes on to explain that substantially disrupts another student's education. So in other words, we still have to define what is substantial disruption, but it's pretty comprehensive in what the state of Florida is requiring school officials to look at as cyberbullying. Before, school officials could actually ignore it if it was not occurring on school grounds. But now with substantial disruption, they also define that it is any disruption to a child's educational program. So that gives schools a little wider latitude in Florida to, regardless of ownership of the computer, regardless of ownership of the cell phone, to act if a student's educational opportunity is being disrupted. The state of Florida has also given us a model policy against bullying and harassment. Every school district has to adopt a policy. So this is a model policy that the state of Florida, all the school district has to do is plug in their own school district's name. And this is something that we can make available to you, or all you have to do is go on floridarules.org or Florida DOE, fldoe.org, and you can and plug in model policy against bullying and harassment, and you can find the policy there. But it goes on to clearly delineate what is right there, what you see. Bullying includes any systematically and chronically inflicting physical or psychological distress. And it talks about, intimidation is even considered cyberbullying if it intimidates and it creates psychological distress. Unwanted and repeated written, verbal, or physical behavior unreasonably interferes with the individual's school performance or participation, or may involve, but can you see that?
Yep, I think so. We're good.
Okay. And gives the latitude that school officials have consequences for a student who does such bullying and harassment. So without a policy that clearly delineates, without a law that clearly delineates, other states are going to have a harder time than Florida defining what substantial disruption is. So in absence of the Supreme Court defining, the state of Florida has given us a leg up, I think, on helping us with some legal muscle when it comes to interfering with students' cyberbullying. Russ, anything else?
Yeah.
Questions? I'm not seeing that there are any questions.
Right. I don't see any questions either. I'm still monitoring that. We can type that. I think the other thing that I wanted to add, Carolyn, is you talked about one case in particular. You started off with really a sexting case, sending nude, semi-nude images, which is really one of the ultimate digital reputation mistakes, as well as cyberbullying mistakes. And when I talk to kids about their digital reputation, one of the things that I let them know is that a couple things. First of all, we believe that, and there's some pretty good research on this, we believe that it's mostly girls sending nude, semi-nude kinds of graphics to others, boys especially, sometimes girls. And the second part to that is that they are doing so not because they want to, but because they feel like they're being pressured by the other person. And I think we've been able to identify the three most popular lies that boys will often tell girls in order to pressure them. And, of course, we can refute these as well. But the first one is, if you loved me, you would. And what we teach girls and others to say during those times is that actually, I'm sorry, you've got it twisted. You've got it backwards. If you loved me, you would never ask me to do something so risky and something that could jeopardize me and my reputation and my future. The second lie is that it'll only make our relationship stronger, kind of a bridge between the time we can see each other again face to face. And what we know is that these kinds of images actually do the opposite. They tear up relationships as well as lives. And then probably the third and ultimate lie is that nobody will see it except me. And we just know that's simply not true. you know, what typically happens is one person will say, hey, don't show anybody else, but look at this, and then that one person will show one more person, and all of a sudden, exponentially, this is how those images get in front of thousands and thousands of folks. We also know that the more salacious a photo is, the more revealing, the greater the chance that it will go viral.
Well said. We had a teacher lose his job here in Jacksonville just a couple of years ago. I'm sure in a lot of the districts this is happening, who send us sex texts. And these were both consenting adults, both age of consent, but again, one lost his job because he in that position of trust and working with other people's children. And whether we agree with it or not, the district was allowed to terminate him. They don't have to rehire him, and he has no legal recourse.
Well, and you know, Carolyn, that brings up another point, which is we've been focusing on kids because that's really what our job is. We're looking out for the welfare of kids, but you know, the reality is that adults are doing all of this as well, and in fact, some kids are learning it from the adults in their lives, and technology has leveled the playing field. So we've got kids who are cyberbullying not only each other but also adults. We've got adults who are cyberbullying kids, and unfortunately now we've got an easier way for some adults to inappropriately have relationships with children.
Yes.
Well, we are down, Carolyn, to really our last couple of 3 minutes. We don't have any questions. Let's just give it another few seconds here. We've got some thank yous coming in. So any last words, Carolyn? We'll go ahead and wrap it up.
No, thanks, Russ. I'm so glad to have you partner with this because you're the expert in the cyber world. I'm just coming along for the ride with the few court cases and statutes. But thank you, Russ, for all the work that you do in this field. You're a real resource to school counselors in this.
Oh my, I was thinking about the same for you, Carolyn. The legal and ethical issues, and what a wonderful, fun working together. You know, oftentimes we end up at the same conferences and we don't get to spend time.
Exactly.
So this is always a treat. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ, and thanks all of you who joined us.
Yep, we will announce when the replay is available. And we'll also set up some links to some of the resources that we've mentioned. Thank you all. And thank you, Florida School Counselor Association. Becky, I don't know if you're still there.
I am. And thanks again to you, Russ and Carolyn, for sharing your expertise with everyone in the state. And all of you that were participants, thanks for joining us today. It is one of the benefits of being a member of the Florida School Counselor Association. So have a good day, everyone. Thank you.